Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Randana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtatashita Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtatashita Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the sum of devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the sum of devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the sum of devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8, Text number 7. Yad adhatu mato brahman diharambho Sya dhatubihi yadrichaya hetuna va bhavanto janate yatha yadadhatu mato brahman diharambhosya dhatubihi yadrichaya hetuna cha va bhavanto janate yata yad adhatu mato brahman diharambhosya dhatubihi yadrichaya hetuna va bhavanto janate yata yadadhatu mato brahman diharambhosya dhatubihi yadrichaya hetuna va bhavanto janate yata. Please repeat. Can you turn this down? I feel like I'm yelling. Bhavanto janate yata yadhatu mato brahman diharambhosya dhatubihi yadrichaye tunava bhavanto janate yata yadhatu mato brahman A disease? Yet, as it is, adhatumataha, without being materially constituted. Brahman, O learned Brahmana, Deha, the material body, Arambhaha, the beginning of, Asya, of the living being, Dhatubihi, by matter, Yadrichaya, without cause, accidental, Hituna, due to some cause, Va, either, Bhavantaha, your good self, Janate, as you may know it, Yata, so you inform me. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. O learned Brahmana, the transcendental spirit soul is different from the material body. Does he acquire the body accidentally or by some cause? Will you kindly explain this, for it is known to you? Purport. Maharaj Parikshit, being a typical devotee, is not only satisfied by confirming the importance of hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam from the representative of Brahmaji by disciplic succession, but he is still more anxious to establish the philosophical basis of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the science of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as such, all questions that may arise in the mind of a serious student must be cleared by the statements of the authority. A person on the path of devotional service may inquire from his spiritual master all about the spiritual position of God and the living beings. From the Bhagavad Gita, as well as from the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is known that qualitatively the Lord and the living beings are one. The living being, in the conditioned state of material existence, is subjected to many transmigrations by continuous changing of the material body. But what are the causes of the material embodiment of the part and parcel of the Lord? Maharaj Parikshit inquires about this very important matter for the benefit of all classes of candidates on the path of self-realization and devotional service to the Lord. Indirectly, it is confirmed that the Supreme Being, the Lord, makes no such material changes of body. He is spiritually whole, with no difference between his body and his soul, unlike the conditioned soul. The liberated living beings who associate with the Lord in person are also exactly like the Lord. Only the conditioned souls awaiting liberation are subjected to change of bodies. How is the process first begun? In the process of devotional service, the first step is to take shelter of the spiritual master and then inquire from the spiritual master all about the process. This inquiry is essential for immunity to all kinds of offenses on the path of devotional service. Even if one is fixed in devotional service, like Maharaj Parikshit, he must still inquire from the realized spiritual master all about this. In other words, the spiritual master must also be well-versed and learned so that he may be able to answer all these inquiries from the devotees. Thus, one who is not well-versed in the authorized scriptures and not able to answer all such relevant inquiries should not pose as a spiritual master for the matter of material. It is illegal to become a spiritual master if one is unable to deliver the disciple. Om Agyan Timurandasya Gananjana Shalakya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Buddhalesh Swayam Rupakadah Mayam Dedati Swapadantikam. So Maharaj Parikshit is here with Srila Prabhupada in the beginning of the purport. He says, being a typical devotee, is not only satisfied with confirming the importance of hearing the Bhagavatam, but he's still more anxious to establish the philosophical basis of it. So before, there are many verses more or less glorifying the hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, and now Maharaj Parikshit, going further, he's asking questions on inquiring about the Bhagavatam and its philosophy, and the basis for it, etc. And there's a whole list of something like 10 about a dozen verses of Maharaj Parikshit asking Shukadeva Goswami different questions, which are more or less constitute the whole, more or less, corpus of the Bhagavatam from here on. He asks him questions such as, please explain to me the mystic yogic powers, what are they like? Explain to me topics of creation, maintenance, and destruction. Explain to me the, what is that? It comes in the planetary systems, how the how outer space, what outer space is like, how the planets are functioning, this and that. And this is more or less, I mean, as well as the time element, how is time divided, etc., like this. So this is dealt with throughout the Bhagavatam progressively. Obviously, time is covered in this, I think 3.2 or 3.3, calculation of time for the atom. And then in the 5th canto, the planets are covered. So, etc., like this, these topics, these questions are gradually answered throughout the Bhagavatam, although Maharaj Parikshit makes inquiries in between, just like, for example, while Shukadeva Goswami is giving a reply about he's answering his question about the planets, giving the planetary systems, actually is described there, Srila Prabhupada is saying, he's describing like that, what relevance does the planetary systems have for Maharaj Parikshit? It could be asked because he's about to die. What does he care? But the planetary systems, it's another form of the Lord. The whole universe, you could take it, the universal arrangement, is another form of the Lord. So Shukadeva Goswami narrates that with that in mind, and Maharaj Parikshit asks that with that in mind. And not only that, as Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, Maharaj Parikshit inquires about this very important matter for the benefit of all classes of candidates on the path of self-realization and devotional service to the Lord. So Maharaj Parikshit, he may have even known some of these things, but he's not asking necessarily entirely for his own benefit, but he's asking for the benefit of others as well, both in the sense of posterity and the sense that the Bhagavatam was recorded knowingly or unknowingly to Maharaj Parikshit, but also, I mean, the sense that today we can derive benefit from these answers, this Q&A session that Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadeva Goswami are having here, but also even during that discussion on the banks of the Yamuna, there are so many different great sages present. Great sages and also minor sages, jnanis, yogis, etc., like this. And they're also hearing the topics of discussion between these two great souls. So these questions are put forward by Maharaj Parikshit for his own benefit and also for the benefit of others. And then, as I was saying, so these are gradually dealt with throughout the Bhagavatam, and the Bhagavatam is more or less based on these questions, actually. I think it comes at the end of this chapter. It's either this chapter or the next chapter, detailing the topics which are covered in the Bhagavatam. And it's specific to the Puranas, as well, topics of creation, maintenance, the change of manus, etc., like this. The science of God, liberation, all these topics are contained within the Bhagavatam. And they're elaborated on the basis of these answers. So like I was saying, Maharaj Parikshit, at different points, as he's hearing the Bhagavatam, although he originally asked so many questions, and having his questions answered, he again got more questions. Just like, I was giving an example, he asked about the planetary, what the universe is like, how the planets are situated. Now, Shukadeva Goswami, he answers that in the 5th canto. And then immediately upon hearing that, specifically upon hearing the narration, descriptions of the hellish planets, and the experiences conditioned souls go through there, Maharaj Parikshit immediately inquires, what's the process, how can, more or less paraphrasing, what's the process by which conditioned souls can be liberated from such hellish conditions? How can they be saved from this status? And from there, a Jamil story is narrated, etc., like that. And it takes up practically the whole, like, a third to a half of the 6th canto. So Maharaj Parikshit is putting forth relevant and intelligent inquiries to Shukadeva Goswami. He's not just blindly taking it. Just as Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna said that, previously I narrated the science to the sun god, immediately Arjuna, not exactly objected, but he put forward his doubt that he had, that how is it that you narrated, the sun god is senior to you, by birth, how is it that you narrated the science to him when you're much younger than him? The sun god has been in existence from practically, not exactly time immemorial, but from earthly years, we can take it like that. So there's a question or there's a doubt in Arjuna's mind, and immediately got resolved. The whole Bhagavad Gita, it progresses on a very similar path, just like we're reading now on Tuesdays from the 6th chapter, and Krishna is narrating this very complicated form of yoga, and immediately Arjuna rejects it. And then he asks Krishna, having a doubt in his mind, what is the fate of such a yogi who practices any form of yoga, actually, and falls away? He neither enjoys material happiness because he's restraining the senses from their object, and if he doesn't attain spiritual perfection, in other words, he loses out on both. He neither enjoys materially, nor does he get the spiritual perfection. So what's his destination? Does he not perish like a riven cloud, Srila Prabhupada translates as. So, and then, of course, Krishna, he resolves that by saying one takes the life of such a unaccomplished yogi, he takes birth in a pious family, a brahmanas or an aristocratic family, to carry on his God consciousness, to pick up from the point he left off in his last life. So there's all of these throughout the Bhagavatam, the Gita, and Shastra in general. There's this back and forth answers of understanding between guru and disciple. It's not just a blind, as Srila Prabhupada would point out many times, that things have to be understood intelligently and with proper focus. So just like Maharaj Parikshit is saying here, he already understood. He's a pure devotee, he understood, and it was previously discussed in the Bhagavatam. Briefly, he says that this transcendental spiritual soul is different from the material body. That he already understood. But one thing, how does he acquire this body accidentally or by some cause? We will kindly explain this, for it is known to you. So maybe he knew this, maybe he didn't know this. Presumably he knew this, even though, considering his status as a pure devotee. But Srila Prabhupada points out even if one is fixed in devotional service, like Maharaj Parikshit, he must still inquire from the realized spiritual master. So even if one is fixed in devotional service, still you have to put forth inquiries to the spiritual master. And so that's what Parikshit Maharaj is doing here. So specifically, briefly touching on this point, so does he acquire the body accidentally or by some cause? Will you kindly explain this, for it is known to you? Can you please pull up 291 verse? So I'll just read directly from the Bhagavatam because it's directly answered. You can go down to the English. So this is the first question by Maharaj Parikshit. And it's the first question that Sukadeva Goswami answers. He says, O king, unless one is influenced by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no meaning to the relationship of the pure soul and pure consciousness, with the material body. That relationship is just like a dreamer seeing his own body working. And I'll read some from the purport. Maharaj Parikshit's question as to how the living entity began his material life, although he is apart from the material body and mind, is perfectly answered. The spiritual soul is distinct from the material conception of life. But because he is absorbed in such a material conception, because of being influenced by the external energy of the Lord called Atma Maya, this has already been explained in the first canto in connection with Vyasadev's realization of the Supreme Lord and his external energy. The external energy is controlled by the Lord, and the living entities are controlled by the external energy, by the will of the Lord. Therefore, although the living entity is purely conscious in this pure state, he is subordinate to the will of the Lord, and being influenced by the external energy of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, it is also the same thing is confirmed. The Lord is present within the heart of every living entity. And all the living entities' consciousness and forgetfulness are influenced by the Lord. So succinctly, in simple terms, so this word is Atmamayam. So this Atmamaya, Krishna's Atmamaya, his own energy, it comes many times in the Bhagavad Gita. This is what causes the living entity to take on material bodies. Although it's one such cause, although there's another such cause, and that's elaborated on further in the purport. Srila Prabhupada explains very elaborately. I'll just summarize. He says, now the next question automatically will be made, why the Lord influences the living entity to such consciousness and forgetfulness. The answer is that the Lord clearly wishes that every living entity be pure in his consciousness as a part and parcel of the Lord, and thus be engaged in the loving service of the Lord as he is constitutionally made. But because the living entity is partially independent also, he may not be willing to serve the Lord, but may try to become as independent as the Lord is. So Srila Prabhupada goes on elaborating on that more, but it's very simple. So why do we have material bodies? Because we desire independence from Krishna. Originally, we were there with the spiritual world, as is narrated in the Bhagavatam. Why did we fall down from the spiritual world? Because we wanted to enjoy on the same platform with Krishna, in competition with Krishna. Specifically, Srila Prabhupada used that word. So it's confirmed throughout, just like this verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Bhuli Se Jiva Anadir Bahir Mok. So this Anadi, beginning from, you could take it as beginningless, and actually literally that's what it means, but you can also take it as time immemorial, in the sense that it's from a point so far back, it may as well be without a beginning. We've been in this material world and we've been exhibiting this desire to enjoy in competition with Krishna. Simply put, our envy of Krishna. And because of that, ateva mayatare diya samsara dukkha. Because of that, we're suffering. And it should be understood, actually, as important. Just as Parikshit Maharaj, he himself, effectively, directly or indirectly, he asks the question here. He understood that the body is different from the soul, but he wanted to understand, why do we have the body to begin with? Because otherwise, if one doesn't understand the cause of something and just treats the symptoms, then how can it be prevented in the future? It's just like if you have some sort of chronic disease, or if you say, I don't know, upon eating sugar, you have some sort of bad reaction, and you just try to treat the symptoms. We should understand why we're in this material world, not simply not just act on the platform of trying to. As explained throughout the Bhagavatam and Gita, devotional service, simply put. So, and specifically in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said, Sadhu Shastra Kripai Jadi Krishnan Mukha Hoy, Se Jiva Nistar Mai Tahar Chadai. That if the conditioned soul becomes Krishna conscious by the mercy of saintly persons who voluntarily preach scriptural injunctions and help him to become Krishna conscious, the conditioned soul is liberated from the clutches of Maya, who gives him up. So this liberation from Maya, this coming out of this material existence, is affected by the mercy of saintly person. Literally, it said here, Sadhu and Shastra. And Shastra is, the two things go together. Of course, we have Guru Sadhu Shastra. Without a spiritual precept, a spiritual guide, basically one is living an animalistic life. If one doesn't take to enlightenment by saintly persons, and one is neglectful of this. I was just reading, otherwise so many different misconceptions enter within the mind, and one can't properly understand things as they are without the guide of without the light of Shastra and Sadhu. Just like I was reading just now, and I'll build you a temple, and trying to get the Bombay temple built, Juhu temple. They were trying to get permission, basically a permit from the city to build that temple. And the police commissioner, he denied them, saying, no, your kirtan and bhajan may be a nuisance to the area. So, and Srila Prabhupada was infuriated because although, I mean, especially at that time, it was India, it should be understood that kirtan is meant for the Mahatmas. Just like there's this verse in the Gita, Satatam kirtayanto mam yatanta shtadurdavrataha tamam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. That is meant for the saintly souls, and what is the result of kirtan? One becomes elevated and actually free from the material world. Elsewhere, just like, that's also there. It's in the 9th chapter. Apichit sudaracharo bhajanti mam anyanya bhak. So bhajan is meant for the Mahatmas, actually. It's not meant. So to say that kirtan is a disturbance is actually a very, very, very gross misconception. And Srila Prabhupada even wrote about this very letter in the 10th canto. He mentioned it there. But this understanding is there, and so many different misunderstandings are there due to lack of guide from a spiritual master. Again and again, Shastra implores us to approach a spiritual master, just like there's so many different verses in the Bhagavatam. Tasma gurum prapadyate jigyasu shreya uttamam. Then in the Upanishads, there's that, how does that start? Tadvigyanartam sagrum ivabhe kachit samantpane shrotim brahmanishtam. So we should approach a spiritual master, but it should not be done blindly. And specifically, just like these two verses, shrotim brahmanishtam, and elsewhere in that other verse, shabde pare nishnatam brahmane upashamash. What is that? Nishnatam brahmane upashamash. So basically, they're saying they're saying the same thing. The qualification of a bona fide spiritual master is that he's fixed in Brahman, delivered to the disciple, quoting Rishabhadev. So these two things are necessary. The spiritual master, he should be learned in scripture, but at the same time is not an academic sort of learning. It's not a dry scholarship that we're talking about when it comes to being learned in Shastra. And you'll find there are people who have memorized, who they know Shastra in the sense that they can quote whole Samhitas and whole Vedas to you. They've memorized whole books of knowledge, but they don't actually know the import of it. That's because the spiritual master, not only is he realized in Shastra, that not only is he learned in it, he's realized the conclusions of it, and most importantly, he's connected with Krishna. And he can connect the disciple with Krishna. Otherwise, just learning in and of itself, it's like Jati Shastram Tapasjataha. It's like Aprana Yeshva Dehasya Mandanam Loka Ranjanam. It's like decorations upon a dead body. That verse is there. So specifically this aspect of being able to link the disciple with Krishna and also dispel the disciples' doubts in Krishna consciousness. Just as, for example, as I was pointing out earlier, the example of Arjuna, the example of Maharaj Parikshit here, and it's the duty of the spiritual master to dispel all of the doubts of the disciple. And, conversely, it's the duty of the disciple to approach the spiritual master with doubts and get them resolved. It's a reciprocal process, in other words. And Srila Prabhupada says, even if one is fixed in devotional service like Maharaj Parikshit, he must inquire from the realized spiritual master all about this. So these doubts in Krishna consciousness have to be uprooted and weeded out, just like we have some garden out back. And in order for the plants for the vegetable crop to grow properly, the weeds have to be plucked out regularly. Otherwise, the weeds will strangle the plant, or if not, maybe not completely strangle and kill it, but it will impede its growth, sapping nutrients from the soil. So similarly, doubts in our mind about the process of Krishna consciousness, whatever it may be, even if it doesn't directly cause us to give up Krishna consciousness, it saps away the vitality of our Krishna consciousness, or our ability to execute it in so many different ways. To be a pure devotee, it means to be convinced about Krishna consciousness. You can't be a pure devotee and have some doubt in your mind about Krishna consciousness. Just like as Srila Prabhupada's disciples would often recount in so many different ways when Srila Prabhupada would speak, it was with complete conviction and as a matter-of-fact sort of way. Not just some sort of theoretical understanding or speaking on some sort of basis, but speaking Krishna consciousness as if it's as clear as the sun that's coming through the window. It's an self-evident fact. Srila Prabhupada, in one place in the Bhagavatam, he writes, to become a pure devotee means one should be firmly convinced of his being the eternal servant of Krishna. So you can't tread the path of pure devotion without uprooting these doubts within the mind, without becoming firmly convinced about Krishna consciousness. Especially for preaching, a major aspect of Krishna consciousness is not only becoming learned and imbibing it ourselves, but also imparting it unto others. And if one isn't convinced himself, how can one convince others? It's not possible. It's just like Srila Prabhupada says, I think in the fourth chapter of the Gita, unless one himself, if paraphrasing, one can't convince others to give up smoking if he himself smokes. It's a fault in one's character. So similarly too, unless we're convinced in Krishna consciousness, we can't impart that conviction unto others. It's the case with anything. It's very common sense. Just like if you have some doubt about something, that doubt will become evident in the person you're speaking to. So these doubts undermine our preaching, because conviction is required for effective preaching, and they also undermine our Krishna consciousness in so many different ways. As I was speaking, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Ashatadana Purusha Dharmasayasa Parantapa Aprapya Mam Nivartinti Mritu Samsara Vartamani. That those who are not faithful, who have some sort of doubt on this process of Krishna, on this path, they're unable to attain me, and they return to this Mritu Samsara Vartamani. Literally, this miserable material world that's characterized by death. So these things have to be uprooted. And there's so many different examples of devotees falling away subtly or grossly because of doubts. A very famous one, Srila Prabhupada was, what's his name? I believe his servant at the time, or somebody, Purushottam Das, who couldn't accept Srila Prabhupada's statements about the moon. And Srila Prabhupada was completely uncompromising about it. So eventually this doubt in his mind, it just left him, most of us know the story, it left him to give up Krishna consciousness altogether because he couldn't accept the fact, the descriptions of the moon given by Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada's rejection of the moon landing. So similarly too, another one I was just reading somewhat recently, has been mentioned a few times in class, but Jamadagni Das, formerly. One such disciple of Srila Prabhupada, who famously had argued with Srila Prabhupada in 1975, the conversation has been quoted in some classes before, but I was doing some research into it, and this devotee, he actually had very intimate association with Srila Prabhupada. It's not just somebody that came out of the blue. So he intimately associated with Srila Prabhupada every day for what he says, almost 3 hours every single day in 1970, 1971, I believe 1969 as well. He was giving Srila Prabhupada massage every single day. And he would put forward different questions to Srila Prabhupada. He wasn't just a rank and file devotee, in other words. He was rank and file, but not in the sense of having generous association with Srila Prabhupada. And so he had different doubts about Srila Prabhupada's books, and actually he was thinking that Srila Prabhupada is telling me some things that he's not telling everybody else. He had some funny conception. And even from the very beginning, devotees remarked that he had some funny conceptions about Krishna consciousness. But the fact is, he had doubts about Srila Prabhupada's books. And actually, there's one recent, he wrote 20 years ago now, a recap of that infamous conversation he had with Srila Prabhupada, where he and Kanupriya asked Srila Prabhupada many different things about statements in Srila Prabhupada's books about how is it possible that Ugrasena Maharaj has so many millions of different bodyguards. How is it, should I work under my GBC or should I work under you? Why can't we keep beards and mustaches on our faces when you yourself, Srila Prabhupada, had some, or they accused him one, just like most of us may have seen, some advertisement of Srila Prabhupada in his householder life, pharmaceutical ad, and he had a mustache there. So they pointed out to him, you were keeping a mustache, so why can't we keep facial hair? And it's not just the questions themselves, but they were putting things in a very unsubmissive and very challenging manner. So it's also very relevant. Srila Prabhupada is saying here, the spiritual master answers relevant inquiries, and those inquiries also should be submissive, just like we have Tadvidi pranipatina pariprashna sevya upadakshenti te jnanam jnaninas tatvadarshinaha. That the inquiries put from disciple to guru are meant to be accompanied by service and also of a submissive nature, not just openly challenging. It's just like if you go into a math class and want to learn calculus and you start challenging everything the professor is saying, you're not going to learn very much. But if you inquire submissively as to how the professor comes up with a proof, then you can learn actually what's going on there. So anyway, back to the topic, these disciples were being challenging, and Srila Prabhupada could detect that. But anyway, glossing over that, this has been covered before, it's evident that this one devotee specifically, he had doubts about Srila Prabhupada's books, statements about Srila Prabhupada's books, and more or less in his mind, he recounts that basically he just considers them Vedic fairy tales meant to impart knowledge of Brahman, more or less. So there is this, all these narrations in the Bhagavatam, narrations about Krishna, Krishna's bodyguards, what is it? Maharaja Ugrasena's bodyguards, etc. like this. The many different leelas that are also narrated in the Bhagavatam, he was considering, there was a doubt in his mind from the very beginning that how can these things be real? And the result of that doubt, actually, he gave up Krishna consciousness. Even, it seems like there's some affinity today, but we can see, at least at the time, he rejected Srila Prabhupada. So this is on a gross scale, of course, just rejecting the spiritual master, rejecting the teachings, but it's a very good example of what a doubt can lead to if left unchecked. So these things have to be given up, and these doubts are resolved, as I was saying, and Srila Prabhupada is also saying, by approaching a spiritual master and asking from him. The spiritual master should be taken advantage of. The spiritual master is specifically there to rectify the doubts of the disciple. Sometimes it's, you see devotees, they have apprehension about approaching the spiritual master with some genuine concern or genuine inquiry because they don't want to waste the spiritual master's time. That's also there, but the spiritual master is also, specifically, he's taken the time and the role and the function of a spiritual master to act as a guide for his disciples and answer relevant inquiries. Now, it's a multifarious topic. Of course, the spiritual master also has senior disciples, to which he made this as Srila Prabhupada, even as early as 1967, when he was in San Francisco. He was directing new bhaktas joining the New York Temple, 26 2nd Avenue at that time, to take training from Brahmananda. Because Srila Prabhupada, as early as 1967, because Srila Prabhupada personally trained Brahmananda, and many of the basics of Krishna consciousness don't require direct personal instruction from the spiritual master. Of course, personal instruction is also there. Srila Prabhupada said that on one morning walk, one devotee was lamenting to Srila Prabhupada that something along the lines of, I want some sort of personal instruction from you. And Srila Prabhupada replied that by reading my books, that is personal instruction. So that's also there. And of course, the spiritual master writes books. I was just hearing in some lecture, I forget who it was, that one practical reason why the spiritual master writes books is that many of the topics of the disciples, they're FAQs, they're questions that are asked again and again and again, just like this question we're dealing with today. Why do we have a material body if the soul is different from the body? Why did we fall down from the spiritual world? So many different things are there. How does the creation come about? What is the universe like? How are we different from the body? So many different questions are asked again and again and again. And at least if you hear from these question and answer sessions from the Shravana Kirtana camps, which Bhaktivedanta Swami holds in different places, actually a lot of the questions are the same, using different words, but it's hitting on the same topics because people ask the same questions again and again and again. How do you come to Krishna consciousness, etc. like this? So for this purpose, the spiritual master writes books for the education of his disciples and for the guidance of his disciples. Both on general principles are contained within the books of the spiritual master, but also specific instructions. That personal instruction is also there even within the books of the spiritual master. Because the books of the spiritual master are not some books and lectures as well. We can extend like that. They're not a mundane object confined by time and space. So there's general principles, just like Srila Prabhupada is speaking here, general principles of philosophy, how the soul is different from the body, how the nature of envy for Krishna, etc. like that. General, we can take it, philosophical understandings, but also it's the spiritual master can personally instruct the disciple through his books. Just like many of us probably have experienced, so many devotees recount that they were going through they had some doubts or question in their mind, or question about what to do, or so many different things, question on some specific philosophical topic. And by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, they, as if happenstance, come across an answer to the topic, or what they were seeking an answer to by reading the books of the spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada's books, or by hearing his lectures. It just so happens that Srila Prabhupada is talking about the exact same thing. So Srila Prabhupada, he said, I'm present in my books, and he's literally present in his books. So that's there. Of course, the spiritual master is present in his books, but just by the, in other words, sometimes there's this I forget who was saying this. I think it was Jayadwaita Maharaj. Something like no, it was Devamrita Swami, actually. He was saying something about, paraphrasing him, like it's not that you just put a question before a book and open it up to a random page and take it like that. It's not some sort of airy-fairy sort of thing like that. It's not like you put some sort of question before it and automatically it comes to serve you. It's not like that. Therefore, the spiritual master, externally, he's physically there to speak with, to take advantage of, to write to him, to converse with, because often the material world is a very complicated place, and often we're put into very awkward situations with which may or may not be specifically dealt with in Shastra itself, or in previous instances. Just as Srila Prabhupada, he had to deal with so many different things. A very good example of something that he dealt with on an unprecedented scale is the fall down of his sannyasi disciples. Presumably that was there in history, of course, we can take it for granted. But on such a large scale, it practically had never been seen on such a level. So similarly, so many different questions Srila Prabhupada resolved according to time and place. Matters of dress, matters of etiquette, matters of adjusting things in terms of preaching in different locations. So the spiritual master, he adjusts these things personally. So there's the books of the spiritual master, which can be consulted for guidance, general guidance, and also specific guidance may be there. But the spiritual master is also personally there, and when necessary, it should also be taken advantage of. Of course, not relevant, just as Srila Prabhupada is saying here, this word which comes up often, relevant inquiry should be made. Not that just some sort of mental gymnastics should be put, but some sort of genuine concern or doubt in Krishna consciousness should be put toward the spiritual master for resolution, for he can resolve it. This is one of the necessities for having a living spiritual master, because these things can be rectified in his presence. Otherwise, just going to, as the Ritviks do, just going to the books of Srila Prabhupada and not being able to have this personal guidance of a spiritual master, it seeds so many different things in one's Krishna consciousness. It seeds the seed of doubt primarily, but also the seed of just lack of proper authority, lack of guidance, lack of direction in one's spiritual life. Everything in one's spiritual life is done under the instruction and guidance of one's spiritual master, either directly or indirectly, especially for the brahmachari order. So that personal guidance is needed. But even if one is a grihastha in terms of preaching, location, etc., the spiritual master gives sanction in like that. At every step of one's spiritual life, the spiritual master is there to give guidance. Just as at every step of Maharaj Parikshit's leaving the body, Shukadev Goswami was there to guide him through the whole affair, to give him proper counsel on what to do. And each time a doubt came up in his progression of hearing, Maharaj Parikshit put it forward to his spiritual master and had it resolved. Therefore, this inquiry is essential for immunity to all kinds of offenses on the path of devotional service. The spiritual master safeguards us from making mistakes in devotional service. Just as Srila Prabhupada, he translated Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and also Srila Rupa Goswami originally compiled it. And within there's so many different, specifically offenses to be avoided in devotional service. Without the spiritual master compiling such a thing, without the guidance of the spiritual master, how could we know about such things? We may be executing devotional service, but so many different offenses we may commit in the name of devotional service. And therefore, even if one is fixed in devotional service like Maharaj Parikshit, he must still inquire from the realized spiritual master about all this. So I spoke of this a little bit earlier, but even if one knows, still one should inquire from the spiritual master. Of course, not as to disturb him, but as a matter of duty from the disciple. If you hear Srila Prabhupada's early lectures, 1966 through at least 1970, where I'm hearing now, Srila Prabhupada he would always ask questions at the end of his classes. And actually, if there wasn't some question, Srila Prabhupada would become slightly disturbed. And he would make the point that there should be some question. Otherwise, have you perfectly understood it? This is just something I heard the other day, one such example. So again, he opened the class for questions, and there is no question. And so he said, if you have got any question, you can put. I shall try to answer. Have you got any question? No. Now try to understand. If you have got any doubts, you can question. Yes, because this is a discussion. We're trying to understand God, so you must understand it nicely. Question is one of the items for understanding. So far my disciples are concerned, they are my disciples for the last 2-3 years at that time. Still, daily I require questions, letters, at least 1 dozen from different branches. They are very, very intelligent questions. So question will be there. If you try to understand something seriously, there must be questions. Just like a child who wants to understand something from parents, always inquiring, Father, what is this? Daddy, what is this? Mommy, what is this? That is intelligence. You see, a child who always questions the parent, that means he is going to be very intelligent in the future. But at the same time, you should not simply make the learned man to whom you question as dictionary, but you must give your Tinder service also. One memory that is coming to my mind that I believe it was a class I was hearing in some class that as I was mentioning, the inquiry should be relevant to what's going on at hand. So even though Srila Prabhupada is saying this now, sometimes he would outright reject questions, even if it seemed to be relevant. Just as Jamadagni's questions to Srila Prabhupada seemed to be relevant, but he didn't accept them because of his mood. So similarly too, sometimes Srila Prabhupada would put forward questions to him, but he would reject them actually because he had already dealt with something, those questions in his books, and we asked him, "Are you not reading? Are you not reading Bhagavad Gita? Are you not reading my books?" And sometimes disciples were just trying to make more or less a dictionary out of the spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada is saying here, they're putting forward completely irrelevant inquiries to the spiritual master. But this genuine, relevant inquiries as to understanding who is Krishna, how is he God, what is my relationship with him, how can I act in that relationship, or how to progress my devotional life. These sort of inquiries are relevant. So, let me see. And of course, the books are there. Srila Prabhupada has mentioned his books. I've discussed that already. So I can end my class there and open it up for any questions or comments anybody might have at this time. Yes?
Hare Krishna. I just wanted to add one point to you're mentioning about the servant of Srila Prabhupada, Purushottam.
Yeah.
Again, as I remember, it happens in such a way that Purushottam shows Prabhupada.
He was showing the footage of the
showing the footage of Srila Prabhupada, showing the footage of the moon landing in the TV, and Prabhupada is seeing. And he's showing Prabhupada that you see Prabhupada, they are landing. And Prabhupada is saying, no, they didn't land. But eventually, he believes more on scientists than on Prabhupada. Mm-hmm. So he rejects Prabhupada and he leaves. But after he leaves, Prabhupada says that, okay, he doesn't believe me, but why doesn't he has doubts on the Shastra?
Yeah, this
is more important point. The point is that Prabhupada, they were having more faith on Prabhupada, but Prabhupada was so expert and intelligent enough to draw their attention towards the Shastra, which is on which of course there should be Yasya Deve Parabhakti, Yatha Deve Tatha Guru. Shastra and Guru also should be there, but first we should understand Shastra is more important, and whether the Guru is following the Shastra or not, and in that way we should that Guru Sadhu Shastra should be assimilated. Otherwise, okay, sentimentally it will happen over a period of time. The statements will come that we believe more on Prabhupada than on Shastra. This is not the way Prabhupada taught us. One devotee, I should not say his name, but he comes to India and gives a whole thing about, to the members of Indian leaders, he gives the title of the seminar or lecture is, we believe more on Srila Prabhupada than in Shastra. First itself it's rejected, title itself is rejected. And he couldn't convince, and it is a flaw in one sense. because we believe in Prabhupada because Prabhupada believes in Shastra. Prabhupada always wanted to establish Shastra. So Shastra is first, and why we follow Prabhupada? Because Prabhupada follows Shastra. So this very, very important point,
Yeah.
because over a period of time we develop sentiment to Shastra, and then we think, and the problem comes because, as Jamadagni Prabhu was saying, one devotee while giving you the class, he tried to make statements like Prabhupada said that there are eagles or there are birds which fly from one planet to another planet, and they eat elephants, and
Yeah.
they're like eggs in the air, and the eggs fall, and again a big birds are formed, and again they fly. So it is like a fairy tales, but we may not know from which Shastra Prabhupada is trying to speak, but Prabhupada is speaking from Shastra. But that devotee is making the point that this, as Jamadagni Prabhu was saying, the same way, it is just a tool. He says
Yeah,
it's just
exactly,
a
yeah.
tool, or just like a soldier, when he is fighting, he takes some sword somewhere, he gets, and he fights. That's all. After that, it is not
throws it
required.
away,
He just
yeah.
throws the sword. So it's a very big offense to Prabhupada. Although we may not know from which Shastra and where Prabhupada is saying, but these statements are true. Like many statements about women, many statements about some things about the planets, some things about so many other things. We cannot comprehend how it is, but we should understand that it is somewhere in the Shastra. It's our duty to do research. Yeah, this is the point. So many things can be spoken, but main thing is that. Hare Krishna.
Vinay? Vinay Shunintai.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Maharaj Parikshit is inquiring because he's like a very intelligent person. He's really qualified, but most of the people, they don't even like to ask questions. They don't even like to think. So how can we inspire people in general, the mass of people, to become philosophical, so they can appreciate these inquiries and the answers?
How do you inspire people to become philosophical? Well, it's very difficult actually. As like you're saying, most people are not philosophical. I mean, if you look at the Chatur Vida Bhajanti Mam, Jina Sukriti no original, Arto Jigyasur, and then Gyani Chadparatarshava. So, among those, practically, who comes to Krishna? The Gyani. I mean, actually, if you take this Vedic, what Krishna is speaking, Gyani, where the Gyani is coming to Krishna consciousness nowadays, And even those who are Jigyasur, those who are inquisitive, even those among coming, maybe to Krishna consciousness that may be there, but in society as a whole, therefore Srila Prabhupada, he will make that point that again and again that is just animal life until you come to the point of Brahma Jigyas. So, I mean, just keep, more or less, the thing is, the mass of people are generally not, just like Srila Prabhupada, he said, philosophy is for the class, and the other processes such as Sankirtan is for the mass. So, Kirtan is for the mass, as well as Prasadam distribution. So, generally, broadly speaking, you can't really change. So you can do a little, but the most effective thing is just to expose people to Krishna consciousness. And by that Sukriti, they'll accumulate, somehow or another, they'll attract the mercy of Krishna. Some people, they may not be completely philosophical at all, but if they take the Krishna consciousness in sincerity, they can benefit from that. So, what's it? Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Okay, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Mitravan Prabhu, I'd like to make an inquiry from you humbly.
Go ahead.
Okay. Prabhu, so, sometimes we see that, devotees, they may be following properly and all these things, and they may have like some, they have like, devotional, they're very devoted, to like Krishna and like, some of the instructions Prabhupada gave them, and they may be off a little bit here and there on the Siddhanta. They will be serving very sincerely, and then they will say, everything they may be doing is fine. They may be non-invasive. Like, what's wrong, with having female Diksha gurus and a feminism enter a movement? What's wrong? And but they may be like very sweet and all that, at the same time. So what is the destination of such a person?
Who is sincere in Krishna consciousness, but they're off in the Siddhanta, you're saying?
Yeah.
Simply put, well, I mean,
how can there be sincerity without
how can there be
understanding of
sincere?
Siddhanta?
It's possible. I mean, in the sense that, well, it's a very broad topic and it depends very specifically upon an individual case. Just like there is one disciple of Srila Prabhupada who took the Ritvik philosophy near the end of his life. But nonetheless, we can understand, I forget exactly the conditions under which he left his body. He left his body, I believe, during the Brahma Muhurta on Akshaya Tritiya.
Akshaya Tritiya.
Now, of course, that doesn't, even a karmi can do that, but it doesn't seem, there are no coincidences in a devotee's life in Krishna consciousness. So it's presumed that somehow or other he attracted the mercy of Srila Prabhupada because he renders so much service to Srila Prabhupada. Now, philosophically, he came to be off in one way, but because there is sincere service to the spiritual master, it's a permanent asset in our bank balance. Srila Prabhupada will often make the point. So even if there's so many different issues in our Krishna consciousness, we all Srila Prabhupada's own disciples, one disciple remarked about his own self and his godbrothers, Prabhupada disciple, he said that the perennial problem, perennial cloud over Srila Prabhupada's literary achievements is his own disciples, inability to effectively manage the movement and continual management issues, deficiencies, fall downs, etc. like that. So, no doubt there were faults. Of course, it's a different sort of fault than philosophical deviation, but if there's sincere service, that factor of the spiritual master's mercy is also is taken into account. Now, that doesn't mean automatically that there's qualification to that as well. Just like Srila Prabhupada was often tolerant of fall downs amongst disciples, but he was very intolerant of philosophical deviations. In so many different instances, just like the Gopi Bhava Club in Los Angeles, immediately upon hearing it, he shut it down. So yeah, it depends on a case-by-case basis. If they're sincerely, it depends on a case-by-case basis. Every disciple, or most disciples, even those who are philosophically off, they're thinking, I'm trying to serve Srila Prabhupada to the best of my ability. Most of them, we can take for granted, that most of the people you're speaking of, it's not that they're trying to ruin Srila Prabhupada's movement by a deliberate, knowingly deviating. It's just somehow or another they become mixed up with the philosophy.
We have to see if they're envious of the principles of pure devotional service.
Say what?
Bottom line, we should see if they're envious of the principles of pure
Yeah,
devotional
that's also there. That's also there. And again, it depends on ultimately, it boils down to the mercy of the spiritual master upon the disciple. If the spiritual master wants to take the disciple back to Godhead, in spite of his philosophical misunderstandings or deviation, he can do so. If he wants the disciple to again return them to the material world, to become purified of that, it can also allow that. So
I see. So basically, it's at that point of time, it's between them and the spiritual master.
it seems like it to me. Ultimately, actually, from the very beginning, it's up to the spiritual master. Even if one is perfectly following, chanting 64 rounds every single day, completely versed in the philosophy, even of Jayananda Thakur, Srila Prabhupada wrote in one letter, if there was no material desire in his heart, then he would have gone back to Godhead. But again, it's not like, those qualifications are also there. So, yeah.
One more thing which I can remember to Mahotsav Prabhu, I can mention that if you hear one specific conversation of Srila Prabhupada mentioning about his own god brother, Ban Maharaj, I would not say.
Yeah.
Then he, Prabhupada, and everybody knows that he made critical statements about Bhaktisiddhanta
And he rejected him, actually,
Rather,
Bhaktisiddhanta.
he rejected Bhaktisiddhanta
Yeah.
Thakur. But when he left his body,
Srila
Prabhupada said,
Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati
Bhaktisiddhanta
Thakur, he rejected him as well, in his presence.
In his
Yeah.
presence. But still, Prabhupada said that he went back home, back to Godhead.
Yeah, because he atoned for it. He executed severe prayaschitta, is described.
He
Yeah.
did atonement, and Prabhupada says all those things in the conversation, that he did atonement, he did prayaschitta, but my Guru Maharaj was merciful. He accepted him, and he took back home, back to Godhead. This is so. As Mahotsa Prabhu was asking that they are female Diksha Guru, why they are accepting it is good and one way. But if you see them, they are very, very sincere in attending Mangalarti. They come to Mangalarti very sincerely, and they are off track in some things. As I told Srila Prabhupada, we accept Srila Prabhupada more than what Shastra. It is those people who have very soft corner towards the female Diksha Guru, about female feminism within ISKCON, like regarding so-called giving statements that Sai Baba is also an avatar. We accept so many avatars. They are big, releasing press notes that Sai Baba is also God. We accept everything. So these are coming from those people who are very sincere, but we can't say in one way that it is between Prabhupada and this one in one sense, ultimately.
They need in the mercy of Prabhupada, but those who adhere to what they teach will definitely not get.
Yeah, but one thing is that we have to be very careful in not to encourage these type of, okay, he is very nice devotee, he's doing very nice, but why do you bother about this particular thing, Prabhu? You just forget it now. You see the bright side. No, philosophically is getting deviated. Many people have told me, why do you see wrong things he's doing? He's opening hospital, he's doing Divya Chakshu, eye camp, all these things. Why do you see that? You see how nicely so many disciples. But this is a deviation. And over a period of time, other devotees think this is what Prabhupada came to establish. This is what Prabhupada came to establish Annadan program. If you go to India, it is a big thing. This is why Prabhupada came to establish hospital. This is why Srila Prabhupada. So youngsters who are coming newly to Krishna consciousness, they don't know what Prabhupada's mood is. And they ultimately end up becoming one more Ramakrishna Mat and one more Isha Yoga or something like that nonsense movements. This is a problem. So we have to, that's why Maharaj is very, His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Maharaj is very strict in telling, no, this is what is. Nasato vidyate bhavo, na bhava vidyate sat. This is sat and this is asat. This is what Prabhupada taught. This is not what Prabhupada taught. So you can't mix up both of the things.
There's degrees of deviation as well. There's gross deviations and there's subtle deviations. Again, it can get complex. Somebody who's grossly deviant. For example, if somebody's worshiping demigods on the altar, 100% they're not going to attract the mercy of the spiritual master. They're not going to go back to Godhead. Okay. There's other things as well, but like that, if somebody, without getting into a whole can of worms like that, so I'll leave it at that.
Do you have anything else?
Bali Maharaj didn't,
He not just
No. Bali Maharaj didn't reject Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. What happened, Bali Maharaj wrote two books, actually.
Shukracharya was not a Vaishnava.
I'm sorry?
Shukracharya was not a Vaishnava, so when he rejected Bali, there's nothing wrong.
No.
He's telling about
No, he doesn't have the
Maharaj,
match.
sorry,
So he was asking, did Bali Maharaj reject Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur? No, Bali Maharaj didn't reject Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he rejected him.
He wrote a long letter. Bon Maharaj wrote a long letter telling all the mistakes.
Practically, in one sense, he rejected.
Yeah, no. What he said was,
Primarily, that letter was dealing with
two things he did. One thing, when he went to London and came back, he wrote a book, My Travels to London or whatever.
presenting himself as the center of.
He didn't even mention Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's name. What to speak of telling us all because of his mercy. And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had them remove all his books and told him he should not come, and told that even when I'm about to disappear from this world, don't let him come and see me. And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he was there, Bon Maharaj wrote a whole letter saying, Maharaj, but Guru Maharaj, all these, the way the mutt is heading, all these problems will happen. Then Bhaktisiddhanta rejected him again. He's, what is this, And then that's when he said, you should not even come see me after I disappear or after I'm disappearing or whatever, after I disappear. And the thing is, all the things which Bon Maharaj wrote in that letter, they actually came true. They actually came to pass.
Yeah, but he didn't reject him. That's the thing. Bon Maharaj never wrote or told personally.
Bon Maharaj never rejected him.
He never rejected him. In a way, I mean, you could take it as ultimately Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he didn't reject him ultimately in the final sense because he rectified himself like that too. So, but in answer to that question, no, at least like that, formally and officially like that. So, anything else from?
I just wanted to add one more point to what is Prabhu's name?
Kokibru?
No.
Oh, Vinay.
Vinay. He was saying that how can we make people philosophical? It is like legislating, it is trying to legislate that everybody has to be philosophical.
You can't, it's impossible.
It is like Guru Maharaj said, he's one of Bhakti Vikas Maharaj said, you can't legislate sincerity and being philosophical. It is by karma one has to, it has to come, or one has to be inquisitive on his own by reading,
it's
by
just,
following.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like if you want to make someone artistic, naturally somebody has an artistic inclination. To arouse that is possible, but, so I want to go over here first because there's a lot of Matajis and we only have 7 minutes left. So do the Matajis have any questions they want to ask? Anything? No? Okay. Natalie?
So,
Wow.
hold on, it's weird.
You want to ask something?
Huh?
He's doing the camera.
So it seems like in the case of the letter about Jayananda Prabhu.
Yeah.
So it's like you come from the material world into devotional service to purify your desires. But if you have desires left, then Krishna guides you into the heavenly planets to enjoy materially and purify your material desires.
That's there. Srila Prabhupada, multiple statements are like that. Actually, there's one statement by Srila Prabhupada. Well, this is recounted by a disciple, I think Bhakta Prabhu, and Srila Prabhupada tributes. He says that he quotes Srila Prabhupada saying that most of my disciples would take birth as demigods because of material desires. So Krishna gives us what we want. If we want pure devotional service, he'll give it. At the same time, if we want devotional service, he'll give it. If we want material enjoyment and devotional service, what is that? That's what the demigods do. Just like Indra, he's a devotee, but he's also filled with material desires. So not as grossly as others, but that's there. So the normal course is that the devotee goes to the heavenly planets, resumes his devotional service, and then goes back home, back to Godhead from there. But again, there's in every birth, whether it be a demigod birth or a birth as a human being, there's always chance of being deviated from devotional service. Just like we see many Gurukulis, they're born in devotional service and they're like gone back into the material world, Fall down means a gap of millions of years, Srila Prabhupada said. So
is it that in your duration, the heavenly planets, you at some point have to give up material desires still, or is it that okay?
You don't have to. You can retain material desires if you want to. But if you want to go back home, back to Godhead, you can't. You can't retain those material desires.
Okay, I see. I have another question. What can you give some example of since not everyone's going to talk to the spiritual master directly, especially those who come visit, will have to answer those questions.
Mm-hmm.
What can be considered irrelevant? I don't know, we get those questions oh, you guys are activating your third eye, right? And stuff like that. It's
those are
I don't know.
Those are relevant inquiries, and it's to the extent that those people are misguided.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They have some sort. Actually, most people are completely misguided. Even myself before coming to Krishna consciousness, it's you think in terms of consciousness and chakras and all this stuff that's just completely bogus. But it indicates sincerity. It indicates you want to understand something. Irrelevant inquiries are there can be so many different irrelevant inquiries. Just often you hear I mean, Bhakti Vikas Maharaj himself, just like the questions in the Q&A sessions that he'll just like not answer. Or like, it's like, it boils down to the understanding that like, what does this have to do? What relevance does this have to your spiritual life at all? The key word, like relevance. Of course, there should be a philosophical under just like this question: how do we fall down from the spiritual world? As relevant to our spiritual life in one way, you know, there should be a philosophical understanding there. There shouldn't be. There's a big gap in the philosophy. You know what I mean? But at the same time, we also kind of not exactly explain away, but more like resolve the question. Is that, and also the thing is there like. Even then, what relevance does it have to spiritual life in terms of like day-to-day like practice, you know what I mean? So, for example, what practical use is it for us to know, like, I don't know, what are the exact descriptions of the heavenly planets, or how many, what it takes to attain the post of Indra? When we take birth on the heavenly planets, do we enter within a womb and suffer in there still? Or like, you know, all these like, it may be interesting to know, but it may not be exactly relevant. It may be a sort of like, just as Srila Prabhupada is saying here, don't make your spiritual master a dictionary, right? It may be interesting to know all these things, but it's not like, it's not the spiritual master's job just to like narrate this, that, and the other in terms of like pleasing the disciple's mind. But it is his duty to narrate in terms of what guiding the disciple spiritually. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada talk on those things, and sometimes the spiritual master talks on those things, but it's not the basis of Krishna consciousness. So, is that okay? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. You wanted me in early, I didn't do it.